Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tattva Tuesday. This is Lindsay Warwick, the conduit on Spotify and YouTube. Took a little break last week, had a couple of crazy weeks happening, but excited to be back this week and have my guest here with me. I have Julio Alonzo, tarot reader, and also one of my really close friends. So super stoked to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Lindsay. I really appreciate you having me. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, me too. And this is my debut of my microphone. Check. I wanted to take it to the next level, because this is something that I'm very passionate about. And
Yeah.
I know you and I were talking earlier today about, well, what are we going to even talk about? What should I say? What shouldn't I say? So I wanted to share something. I was listening to the About 30 podcast today, and Aubrey Marcus was on there, and he's one of my favorite podcasters. Love him. He's chef's kiss. You should totally check out the Almost 30 podcast and also check out the Aubrey Marcus podcast. But he was asked about, how do you share so openly on your podcast about your love life, about your spiritual life, about everything? And this is what he said. I wrote it down because it was so profound. He said, yeah, there's always some fear, but you get over the fear quickly when you realize that the more you share, the better it's received. The only blanket that's ever going to keep you warm is the truth. Anything else is just a constant level of exhaustion, of strategizing, of living in the mind. And then he said, how do you really drop into the art if you're focused on constantly strategizing what you're going to share, what you're not going to share? It takes courage, but also once you start doing it, you realize the great relief that comes with it. Boom, mic drop.
There you go.
So I thought that would be kind of inspiring, a way to kind of start the podcast. Don't mind the door closing behind me. My dog knows how to open doors, and he just went back there. So that is happening. Anyways, yeah. So the Tattva Tuesday podcast is something that kind of came to me. A friend of mine had asked me to start a podcast at the end of last year. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. And then after meditating and everything, I came up with this idea of the spiritual interview series. Cause there's been so many people like yourself that have influenced me on my spiritual journey. And I've always been fascinated with the whole concept of God and how people find God or goddess, source, great spirit, Wonkin Tonkin, whatever people call it. And so that's kind of how this idea was birthed. And also, that I went through some relational trauma last year. Yeah. So it was very symbolic for me to start to share my voice again. And so that's what we're doing here. And Tattva is a Sanskrit word that means truth. So we're going to just talk some truth today.
All right. Let's bring it on then. I guess, we're very, I definitely feel that's when you release and let go whatever's on your chest, right? Like everything else seems a lot smoother. There's people that plan on like, how am I going to do this or how am I going to make it X, Y, Z? And there's people that are just doers, and the people that just do it and let go and just say whatever it is that they need to say, the easier that it all comes, right? Like, I think, not worrying about so much of being perfect or how people are going to be perceived or perceive you, right? So it's just spit it out. Don't worry about it too much and just keep it moving. And I think just letting that go into the universe and speaking it into the universe is just going to give you relief no matter how you look at it. So
absolutely. So basically, we can just start off by talking about your personal spiritual journey. And of course you can share whatever you want. Okay. And whatever you don't want, you don't have to share, of course, anything that you don't want to share. So why don't you tell us about your spiritual journey?
Yeah. Okay. So Lindsay, you kind of know a little bit about this, but I mean, just to kind of, recap. So it's very funny, for me getting into this, or first, like, okay, I never thought I was going to be that kind of guy, right? Like, I had this like very weird misconception about spiritual people. And, you know, I don't even own a pair of Birkenstocks. Like I thought like I could not be that guy. I don't have any tie dyes. I don't have any Birkenstocks. I'm like, I'm just not that guy. Right. And I do want to tell this story because me and Lindsay actually helped me in my spiritual evolution. Very true story. Right. So I'll tell you a little background for everybody who's listening. So I want to say it was 2007 or 2017, and I just moved from Texas to New Jersey, right? And Lindsay and I were working at the same job, right? And she was like, you know what, you should, you know, I'm doing Reiki at this convention kind of thing. You should come check it out, right? And I was like, you know what, I should check it out. So, but the night before, I went out with another friend of mine from work, and Lindsay knows him, and we went out. We got like hammered, right? We just went out and just got crazy at the club, right? Just nuts. And then I woke up in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, I remember I was supposed to, you know, do Lindsay's thing. I was like, I gotta go. And I felt like so not my jam at the time, right? Like it's not my jam. Not what you know, that's not really who I am. And I'm like, you know, I gotta go, right? So I'm like all hungover, and you know, I go to this place and she's doing her thing. And it was just like the most it was just an experience because like I walk in and it just seemed like everybody was just like looking at me. They're like, and then I had like one of the people there that had an actual booth. She was like, do you have a booth here? I'm like, no, I just walked in. I'm like sunglasses, like hungover. Like I have no idea. Like, but it's so funny how other spiritual people feel and see other spiritual people. Right. And that was kind of one of the first things that I knew I was at the right place at the right time, brought to me from a really good friend that helped me begin that process, right? So just even like, so first going there, so I go there and then I met another very well-known psychic, Judy K, right?
Judy.
Yeah, Judy. Shout out to Judy K. If you haven't seen her or check her out, she's a good friend of ours. She's an amazing spiritualist, great reader. She can definitely help you out.
Ooh, we got a story about Judy that I'm definitely going to share after you're sharing.
that life,
day,
okay?
That day.
That day, man.
She told me some shit. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
We continue.
Yeah. So Lindsay is like, hey, you got to get a reading from Judy. I'm like, the line is super long, right? Like super long. I'm like, oh, I'm hungover. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'll stick it out. It's gonna be about an hour and a half or whatever. So, like, I stick it out. I'm touching like little knickknacks that people have created, orgone stones, and I'm touching like crystals and stuff. I'm like, why does this feel familiar? I don't know. It just does, right? But I'm like still fighting my, you know, because I kind of grew up in the hood. I have this whole like gangster persona in my head, you know, like I walk on my own theme music. And,
is that why during this whole thing I keep hearing different songs like come in, like Spirit communicates with me through music, and I keep hearing like every time you say something different, I hear like a different song. I'm like, what's going on? We need a soundtrack to this. I think I'm like, I'm going in on this microphone.
That's right. And we're getting soulful, right? So anyway, long story short, so Judy. And this was probably like here's the thing, like when people, before I tell you this story, I would just say like most people have these little nudges in their life, right? Like there'll be nudges throughout your lifetime when you've been denying the gifts that you have, because I denied mine for so long. I was like, I thought I was going crazy. I thought it was just psychosis. I'm like, maybe I just need to get back on Zoloft or take some kind of prescription medication. Maybe these feelings or these things that I'm seeing is just a byproduct of either, like I said, depression, or a byproduct of just maybe I got into that one time that I got into a brawl. Maybe I have a little bit of damage from that or whatever, right? And so you kind of put it off and you're like, I'm trying to stick to reality with whatever reality is, right? Like your friends and your family and things like that. And, you know, the bad dreams or the dreams that wake you up at night and these feelings of emotions that overcome you, I've had them my whole life, but I really didn't acknowledge them as a gift until 2017. I started with Lindsay taking me to this spiritual expo, and then after go into this story with Judy. So I did the reading with Judy, and she was literally telling me, she was like, there's so much I want to tell you, but I really can't tell you because I can't influence you. So the only thing I'm going to tell you is that you're heavily gifted. You've gone through a lot of things in your life. And she named like 4 things that no one would have known that I went through. Right. And then she was like, you should get into tarot, learn astrology, learn that nothing is coincidence. Everything happens for a reason through time, and time is bendable. And love is one of those things that can actually change time. Love is also it's on a scale. It's just different decibels, because it could quickly go to hate, right? So she said a couple of things, because for me, what I've gone through in the past, I've gone through a lot of like trauma, a lot of loss, right? And a lot of self-deprecating type of things, right? And so from there, I was like, there's no way this lady could have known that. And there's no way that I woke up feeling that I had to go to this place, right? And I was like, that is so not me. I'm not that person. 2 days later, I picked up a pair of tarot cards, and then my whole life changed. And the way that I do tarot, I mean, I do a lot of different decks, cards are flying out, same cards in the same spread. I mean, just like magic, right? And so when we start talking about ignoring your gifts, or ignoring you're trying to find a reason, like, oh, that just happened because of this, or you're trying to explain it during the middle, your whole lifetime, until one day you're just going to have to realize that you're not going crazy. This is not like a funny coincidence. This is who you are, and then this is who you need to become. Because if you don't, you're going to keep thinking that there's something wrong with you, and you're going to become more introverted and more like secluded, and you don't want to be around a lot of people because you feel like no one can understand you. But really, at the end of the day, you're just gifted, and you're sensitive. Not just sensitive emotionally, but sensitive like an antenna to an insect, right? Like you're all of a sudden picking up waves and other people's energies. And why you don't like him? I just don't like him, right? And you know why you don't like him? Because he's a piece of shit, So it's like using those powers. You got superpowers, and some of us were just born with that, and then some of us never had guidance on how to deal with it. We didn't have a family member, or maybe we were brought up very, very religious in the church, and people automatically thinking that, oh, this is like devil's work, or, whatever. There's a lot of stigma that comes with that. I was one of those people, because I was like, my grandfather was a deacon, my mother was extremely religious, but my father was a straight up heathen on the other side, right? He was just like anti-religion, anti-everything. And my mom was like, why did you even marry me? And he was like, well, you're good looking, So my mom thought she could change him. And my dad was like, I'm going to still be that guy, right? Like, I don't believe in that. And so it's very funny, because there's a stigma that's attached to it. And then if I just go back into my family line, I'm like, that's who I've always been. It's just a different part of spirituality. Maybe sometimes it's not so connected to like the book or the word, but more of a spiritual feeling, right? Like seeing things. And that's a whole nother thing, Lindsay, as you know. It's like after that spiritual awakening, then I started seeing UFOs. I was able to capture UFOs on film, and there was a whole other thing that happened. But I give you a lot of props though, because I really wouldn't have started it. I would not have been able to start that journey without you, Linz. And it's pretty funny, because when I woke up that day with Kevin, I was like, I'm not gonna go to a spiritual expo, get out of here, But for some reason I felt like I needed to go, and here I am now. So
Yeah.
funny.
Well, You're welcome. That's amazing. But I think, it is definitely part of my dharma in life, my dharma, right? My life's purpose is to help others to open up. I do believe that we all are spiritually gifted. It's just like a matter of what you said, like if there's guidance or if there, if you have a practice and you're honing in and working with that. But I think that we are all aspects of God. And so it's just a matter of, attuning to that. But that really makes me feel good that I was such a, catalyst for you. Cause that's what I do here on earth.
Yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah. So at that point I was, I had an extra healing room in my apartment in New Jersey, and I was doing Reiki, and I started, seeing deceased people. And I would get messages from deceased people. This was like years ago. And I didn't really share, I don't really share that with many people, but now I am. So I went to go see Judy about it because I had talked to Scott Evans, who was on the podcast like last month or so. He was, a huge influence and a mentor for me. And he told me that the room in my apartment was a portal. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I sat down with Judy and I specifically asked her about the room in my apartment. And I said, is that room a portal? And Judy, she was behind me. She was like touching my shoulders, touching my head, and she started laughing. And I'm like, what? I'm like, why are you laughing? She goes, the room is not the portal. You are the portal. And that shifted me. I was so fucking scared. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? You know what I mean? But they say, God only gives us what we can handle in any instance. So I was open to that. And then a couple months ago, when I was traveling for my other job, I was in Wilmington. I went to the spiritual store and I got some things, and I was checking out, and the woman at the register was like, "You're a medium." And I was like,
wow.
Yeah. I looked around like, yeah. And she's like, but you don't tell anyone. I'm like, no, I don't. She said, oh, okay. Well, the spirit world, they want you to open up to that. And so I think that that's been kind of my path as of recent, is being more open to that. But yeah, spirit, once you're open to the energies, like you said, like, oh, then I started seeing UFOs or synchronistic numbers or animals or whatever speaks to you. That started happening to me. Just like I was saying, like, spirit will communicate to me through animals. For example, I've seen a red dragonfly the last few days, and I hadn't seen one of those ever before. So that was amazing. And red cardinal, so the color red was coming through for me. And then also music is a big way that I literally, as my human design, which if you've ever you should have a human design reading, they're amazing. I learned that I process life through music. Like literally, it's like how I understand life. And that's also how spirit communicates with me is through music. So I think that that's really cool. And it's like, yeah, man, I remember when you were going through your spiritual awakening and you would like hit me up and be like, oh, fuck, am I going crazy?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you're not going crazy. People say, oh, I lost my mind, but really you found your mind. I had this conversation with my friend like a couple months ago about how like, it literally feels like you're fucking going crazy, but you're really finding your mind. And you and I have so many parallels like in our lives. Like, I'm comfortable on here sharing that I used to take anti-anxiety medication and antidepressant medication. And I also numbed myself out like years ago with alcohol and just, casual sex and just like unhealthy behaviors, because I wanted to shut it out. You know what I mean?
Right.
I wanted to shut myself out. So we have a lot of similarities in that way too. And then it's like, once you're open, like your teachers start to pop up too.
Yeah.
Like people that are supposed
that is so
to
true.
help
Yeah.
you.
Hey, it's funny because like even that, like that. So funny that you said that, because after that, then I ended up getting connected with a bunch of other spiritual people that had gifts, right? And it was the X-Men, kind of like, it was 5 of us and everyone had their own gifts. Like somebody was very, very fluid with dreams, astral travel.
Does feel like the X-Men.
Yeah, it was like that, right? And we had our, and you think you're going to be with them forever, like that, having that core group of friends. And sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. But one of the things that you said earlier is like, you're going to have teachers that are going to come in and teach. And sometimes you're going to teach, not knowing that you're teaching. And maybe you'll see them again later in life, and maybe you won't. But when you awaken yourself and once you have your receptors open and your antennas out, everyone who's also connected to that energy, they're going to be able to tell you, you and I are the same. We have the same bond, we have the same connection, and maybe not this lifetime, but previous lifetimes we were connected. And that's one of the things that really blew my mind. I'm like, all these people that are around me now, I won't probably be around them in the next year or two, but right now it feels right. And that's what it's meant to be. It's like we're learning in this energy together. And I never take any interaction with anyone for granted, because there's always a sign. Sometimes it could be a sign that's subliminally like telling you what you need to know, and that's really deep. Like you really opened up yourself to that.
Yeah. And I love what you said. It's like this antenna comes along. It's really your inner frequency. Like it's that law of attraction. The concept of the law of attraction is like, you just kind of tune up your inner frequency, and then that's what's going to show up around you. And yeah, those people that like that old saying, what you seek is seeking you. It is that, and that, we
Very
could go
true.
into like a whole super conversation about, about the law of attraction and all of that too. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, I don't take any interaction for granted either. Good, bad, ugly. The challenging ones are the most beautiful teachers, so I found that to be true along the way. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about like tarot. I know you have cards.
Yeah. I mean, typically I'm one of those tarot readers. Nothing's coincidental, right? So the way I can explain it. So here's cards, right? Mm-hmm. And every card is a layer or a dimension into space, right? And the way that you let cards fly out naturally, it's kind of like the way that space and the angels and the universe is help asking the questions. So it's all about asking and having them give you guidance, right? Now, when you start doing a reading, seeing the same cards from 3 different decks on the same spread, on the same question, that's when I started to really understand that what I was able to do with that is that there's an ether, and the ether has information. So if you think about what you speak out into the universe, it's almost like, it's like having the internet, but for spiritual people, right? You can have the internet and ask the questions, and the questions will be answered to you through little gifts, through little synchronicities, right? Through numbers, through cards, through certain colors, certain license plates, certain songs, certain, it's all math at the end of the day. And if you start looking at tarot is broken down by the zodiac. The zodiac is also broken down by numbers. Now, if I was to look at gematria, it's the same kind of concept. So if you start looking at every number, every vowel, all the numbers add up, and everyone's chart follows a certain type of ebb, right? Now you could go against the chart, but when you typically do that, a lot of times you won't be successful. You're going up against the grain, right? So one of the things that happens, what I've learned now recently, is that everything has a cycle. Our time here in the human race, we have a cycle, and it's probably gone up and down like 4 or 5 times already, right? We only have a certain amount of time, and how much time, what we do with that amount of time that we have, well, then that's up to you, right? Everything comes in there's good times and bad times, right? But if you know when they're coming, if you know when the cycle's about to change, the cycle that's inside of you, your astrology, your birth chart, the cards, the way they're flying out, all of it is connected, the numbers. That's what I started to realize is like, if you start looking at fractions and you start looking at the people in your life and you start looking at numbers, all of those are reoccurring to give you signals and signs and when to check in and when to check out, right? So tarot is a funny thing because the way that I look at tarot is like, it's just a tool to help you, give you guidance. It's really all based on your chart energy. Like I have pulled tarot cards and have them fly out and I could tell like, you know, who they, you know, like what's their sign, who their significant other. I could tell all of that. But it's not so much that the cards are telling me, it's like I'm asking it into the universe. And then the cards are just kind of giving me a little bit of like guidance. But this card by itself means one thing, right? But this card next to this means something totally different. Now, if I got 10 or 20 cards out there, they're all telling a different story for that pattern, for that person. So it's not just the cards, like anybody can read cards, but not everyone can read energy and not everyone can read all the cards as they play out as a story. So it's all a story and it's all time and it's all a cycle. And when you realize that, you'll know when to do things. All right, I'm gonna share this story and I'm gonna be very, one of my last readings that I got when I was in New Jersey before I moved to Texas, a friend of a friend, this is a true story, this is crazy. So a friend of a friend invited me over to go do a reading, which was very odd because most people come to me, but instead I ended up going to them, right? Which was very strange because typically I don't go to other people's houses and do readings. So I do a reading over there and right off the bat, I got it. I already knew what was going to happen. It was just like, whatever that you're trying to do, if you do it between these 2 hours, you'll get away with it kind of deal. Right? like it's a cycle, right? So it's like they want to know without asking me indirectly if they were going to get away with doing something. Right. And for me, it's like, I'm going to tell you the truth and then I'm going to check out of here and don't ever reach out to me again. Right. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, there is guidance. You can't see that, you know, good or bad. You know, I think that's another thing too about being a tarot reader. You know, they say you have to use your discernment and it depends on before and how you feel. Like a lot of times, like I'm one of those guys, like if it's good, bad, if the card comes out in reverse, I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm just going to, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. If I do, I wouldn't be doing my job the way that, you know, people come to see advice, you know. And I'm also not going to over exaggerate either, you know, like I'm not going to say like, oh my God, there's someone put a curse on you and you got to pay me another $200 and all that other stuff, right? That also comes with being a tarot reader as well, you know, like that negative stigma. So, you know.
Yeah, you mean you don't DM anyone like, yo, give me your money, I gotta I hate that, you know. Because I work with Archangel Michael energy, so it's all about integrity and all this. But I mean, I've had readings from you and I've seen the cards fly out, and it's been, I love the way that you do the tarot readings, and I miss like your you were doing them often for the different signs, you know. So
Yeah,
I like that you were doing that. I know you and I are the same in the way that we're very deeply spiritual, but we also enjoy being in the matrix. Like I love having my regular job. It gives me structure. And then, you know, doing this stuff on the side. So you and I are similar in that way too. But I like what you said about, you know, time. So I'm in the shamanic mentorship right now, and we just discussed the differences between 3D reality, 4D reality, and 5D reality. And then also we talked about time and how time is not linear. And this is like,
no, it's not.
It's cyclical. And it's like a staircase. You kind of like come back to the same concepts, but and you see them from a different perspective. And then time is simultaneous. So like the past is happening now, the future is happening now, and we're happening now. It's so mind-boggling. Like our brains, we don't access all those parts of the brain, but time is not linear. It is happening in all directions, almost like different timelines can be happening too, because of our human free will, our ability to choose in every moment. It's like, have you seen Donnie Darko?
I don't think so. I think I might have seen clips of it. I know it's an older movie.
It's one of my
no.
one of my favorite fucking movies. Everybody needs to watch Donnie Darko. So it is about time travel. And I don't even want to share it. Fuck it. I'll share it. So one of the scenes, you can actually see like this like orb, this like liquidy orb coming out of each person, and it's directing them where to go. And it's like, it is so trippy, but you've got to watch that movie because it is all about choice, free will, and like different timelines, and like how, things can change like this. And we have those choices. So it's a super dope movie. Jake Gyllenhaal is in it, and Drew Barrymore and Patrick Swayze.
I gotta check it out.
The soundtrack is dope. It's so good. I love it. I have it on DVD. How old do I sound? How old?
I'm older than you. I'm way older than you. Y'all had it on VHS. I'm sure somewhere.
I got a cassette player. I got a record player.
I like my music with Dolby noise reduction.
But time being cyclical is such an interesting thing. And let's chat about it. Let's chat about how it's cyclical, because you and I just fucking had COVID at the same time.
Yeah, same time.
Again. Last year this time.
Yeah.
Last year this time I had COVID, you had COVID, and COVID, man, it was rough for me this time. I'm still congested and a little nasally, and I have a little bit of a cough. It took like 10 days. Last time was really rough too. And I was feeling depressed because I lost my sense of taste and smell, which is very disorienting. And also I'm a fucking Capricorn, and I couldn't work or teach yoga or do anything.
You could be productive. Oh my God, I could be productive.
Literally, I was like, oh my God, I can't. So I was very depressed, but I went into the darkness, right? My shadow. And the only thing I could do was sit with God, right? Because I believe that we are all aspects of God. And so I can access God at any time. I just had to go within. So I went within. And the lessons for COVID for me this time were about boundaries. And I was setting boundaries with people in a compassionate way, which is something that has been one of my life lessons. And I got into this dark space, and I realized, I was like, oh my God, I had COVID this time last year. And I got to this space where I was like, am I the same person? Fuck no, I'm not. I got out of a toxic relationship. I'm in a new job, not new careers, but a new job. I am in a way better financial place that I was in. And I don't engage in the toxic behaviors that I was engaging in. And so COVID was like it's like a dark night of the soul, the COVID, right? What was it like for you?
I mean, I almost died the first time. I was in the ICU for like 7 days. It was horrible. But I would say that everything what reality is, right? So like let's take a step back, because we talk about time and we'll talk about COVID, but the time. So reality is, if I get enough people in the same room believing in the same thing, or believing the same thing of like what the constructs of reality is, and that has been given to me since birth, and that is what is reality, right? So the more people that believe in the same thing in the same area, that is what your reality is, right? You can change it, but it's always geared on belief, and it's also geared on, if enough people believe in the same thing, that is what becomes around you, because it's frequency, right? That is reality.
Yeah,
Now,
everything is energy at a basic level. That's exactly what you're talking about. It's like some
right,
Matrix shit. Watch the Matrix, seriously.
right. But that's kind of like the same kind of concept with COVID. So like COVID hit, we had no concept of what that was. We've seen it. We see people go through it, but I never experienced it, right? So when I went through that, and I went through it so bad, I was like, okay, I may not make it out of this. This is going to be like a 50-50 draw, right? And so during that whole time when I was in the ICU, I was just like, okay, whatever happens, happens. I did everything that I could. No regrets, praying, I hope that my time here I did what I was supposed to do, right? But then after that,
you told everybody you love them.
Yeah, I was like, I love you, man. If I don't make it out of this, hey, man, just give me some love on my grave.
When that COVID hit you this time, you hit me up, and I was like, "You're not gonna die. You're gonna be okay."
Yeah, I know.
You know, I love your little Libra ass.
But the thing is that during that time that I had it, I was having these dreams, and I just kept on going back in time, and it's not even remembering stuff. Like I literally felt
like
I was going back. Yeah, like I was going back to like when I was, these certain moments in time that were just weird, and like when I was a kid, and my first kiss, and then like seeing a frog for the first time, like these flashes of, like I don't know if it was like flashes of what people see when they're like about to pass or anything like that, but it was like going back in time and having that same kind of view. Why did I do that? Why did I go back there? I don't know, but like for some reason, I needed to go back and reassess my life, or reassess of what that was. And then when COVID hit, this changed everybody's perception. Everyone is different now. Everyone has a different view of the world. We're not as communicative as we used to. We don't hug as much anymore. We're not we're not engaged with each other anymore, because we're so scared of the frequency that is out there with COVID and war and all this other stuff, right? And so when we talk about reality, everything that's being pumped out into the universe, or being pumped out for you to believe it, well, that will become what it is, right? So if you're dreaming about the past, a good part of that is just saying like, there's something that you're still trying to learn from that.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I felt when I got COVID. It's like, I may not make it out of here. So I'm going back in the past. Why am I going back in the past? Because you're going to get another chance. There's some things that you need to learn from that before you can move forward. And that's how I kind of look at that. So nothing is linear. You can go back in time travel every time you close your eyes and go to bed.
Yes. Yes. So I was doing this neuroplasticity work, Lacey Phillips, the To Be Magnetic work. I've probably shared it with you, and I've definitely shared it on this podcast. Amazing stuff. So you get into your theta brainwave state, you deep trance-like state, and the sage is like, look at the smoke. I'm like, it's pretty cool. And you can reprogram your brain. So you go back in time, which, time can be accessed at any point. Actually, I had breakfast with my friend this morning, and we were talking about astral travel. And she asked me if I'd ever done it. And I'm like, I think so. She's like, well, you would know. So I'm like, okay. But apparently there are meditations and such where you can practice astral projection. So that's something that I want to do. Anyways, I love that you said that you can go back into that vault of your heart or your mind and go into a memory and look at it. And this is what you do in the To Be Magnetic work. You go into a space, let's say, you're dealing with feelings of shame, and you go into a memory about shame, let's say from when you were a teenager in high school or something. And you go back into that memory, and she prompts you to, okay, like how would you handle that differently? Visualize yourself doing it differently or talking to that person differently, and then feel the feeling of feeling better, of making a different choice. And it's not like you're like, oh, well, it's not like you're being delirious, like, oh, well, that didn't happen. You're going in and owning what happened, and then empowering yourself to choose differently. And it's just so fucking powerful. Like, I mean, we cannot fathom how we have limited access to our own brain. And it's like, it blows my mind what you can do with the mind. And yeah, man, COVID. Yeah. When your body, when you are when you're in dis-ease or discomfort, illness, whatever, I had to literally at the end, I was like, God damn, my cough isn't going away. I still sound like a frog. And I had to say, my wellness is stronger than this illness. I had to like use my brain power. It was just intense. And I think last time when I had COVID was about boundaries, but I really didn't stick to them, as you know. And this time it was like, I ended a 12-year friendship because it just wasn't I didn't feel good in it anymore. And, I just have eliminated a lot of dramatic energy in my life and toxic energy, gossip energy, because what I'm doing now is I'm really focusing on like just full self-love. And for me, I've learned that the self-love journey is discipline, including boundaries and, framing my energy more, where I don't have, not everyone has access to me anymore. So COVID shone the light on that for me too. And it was like, slow the fuck down.
That's the one good thing I would say about COVID is everything that you thought was important before COVID, you realize after you got it, after the world has gone through this pandemic, who your real friends are, what you really need, who's really there for you. Like you search in who you really are as an individual, because you're
yes.
Yeah. Because I was so alone. Like everybody was so alone for like a year, right? And then you really start to see what you're made out of, right? Like they say a lot of times when people go to prison or in jail for long periods of time, and they're in isolation, two things are going to happen to you. You use that time to do well and get yourself better and understand that this is like the mental mindset that you need to be in to get out, to change your life, or it's going to break you down and it's going to be worse for you, right? That's how I feel how COVID did for a lot of people, myself included, because what I was going down this path, I'm like, everything is great. My life is starting to take off, and then it just went to shit overnight. And then I saw that UFO before it went to shit. And we'll talk about that later, because that was like the heads up, get ready, because the shit's about to hit the fan. And it did. But here we are now. Everyone's probably about 85% of the population has already contacted it, has received it in some kind of shape, form, or fashion, healed from it. A lot of people have passed from it. Our reality's changed. Hell or high water, however you want to look at it, is changed. And the thing is that everyone, what was 3 years ago is not what it is today. And it's so dramatic. And we talk about reality. And the thing about the past is like, you got to be careful not to stay there too long, because you'll have problems moving on to now. Right.
Yeah.
And it's tough.
That's another thing too, right before I got COVID, I had this sound healing, and she placed like the sound bowls on your body, which is amazing. Like I digest life through music. So this is something I'm really into, is healing sound and all this. And she said that the bowl didn't vibrate the way it was supposed to. Because I had a heart chakra blockage, something that I've been working on. My last relationship was very toxic and abusive, and I am so afraid to choose the wrong person again. And so this is right before I got COVID. The message to me was to tell a new story, because like I can't keep saying, well, I was a victim of abuse. I was a victim of abuse. Like,
Yeah.
I endured that experience. I participated in the experience for far too long. I didn't listen to my gut when I had to get out. And I paid for that. And, I wasn't a saint either. There were a lot of lessons learned. And so that was a huge thing for me. Right before I got COVID, I said, I'm telling a new story. Like, I want a new story. I'm not going to make the wrong choice.
Yeah.
And then boom, I got hit with COVID. And it was like a huge, I think illness is also like a DNA upgrade as well. Like, you let go of this old shit that just doesn't work anymore. And then now, like, yeah, just like you said, I'm not the same. You're not the same. Everyone I've talked to that has had COVID, I am not the same. I can't have that low frequency bullshit in my life anymore. It doesn't matter. That shit isn't real. So it's got to go. And it's like before COVID, I said, I'm telling a new story. I'm going to be different. And then COVID, and now I am different. I'm going to tell a new story. So it's just like, yeah, it's crazy. And it's just, it just makes so much sense with our conversation about, time. It's not fucking linear. Like, it's
not
literally
linear at all.
And then we're always like, it almost like I have this idea of the Mercury retrograde. People freak out with Mercury retrograde. I fucking love Mercury retrograde because it gives you the opportunity to revisit things at a slower pace, maybe give it another shot, whatever that means for you. So that's what I felt like. I was like, oh, when I got COVID, I was like, oh, this isn't going to be bad. I had it bad last time. It was fucking bad.
Yeah.
It was 10 days again. You and I fucking FaceTiming each other like, how are you today?
We're both sick. Yeah. But it's funny.
What's your oxygen? We're taking our temperatures on the fucking phone together. What's your temperature? And then I was like, what's your oxygen level? Oh, okay.
It's so funny because
to go through that with you.
Yeah, I know, girl, because we went through that twice. That's hilarious. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Makes you stronger as fuck.
No?
Now this is some no wonder I love Marvel. This is some Marvel superhero shit.
So, like, we talk about the upgrades, right? You talk about upgrades, and we talked about activation, and I will tell you, like, whatever happened to me in that emergency room, like, I'm not the same person.
Your old self died. Just like when this last time with COVID, 8 years ago, I had dengue fever in the jungle. And
you told me that. You told me, and you said it was worse. You said it was worse than dengue. You said when you caught COVID, it was worse than dengue fever.
I honestly felt like COVID was worse than dengue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what you said.
Ivermectin, the medicine for COVID, is actually the same medicine that helps dengue.
I did not know that.
I found that out. And I said, shut the fuck up. Yeah, I guess God thinks I'm a strong ass bitch because I was telling my coworker, I was like, I had dengue 8 years ago. He was like, oh my God. Yeah, the locals, they call it the bone crusher. It was fucking terrible. I thought I was going to die there. And you know what? I did die there. Part of myself died there. Just like last year when I had COVID, part of me died. And this year, I think that last little bit that was hanging on, that, whatever low self-worth, a little bit of that was hanging on, is fucking dead now. R.I.P. old limbs.
So you got lit. That's great. That's really a good way to look at it, because like I never thought about, like, I know I felt different, but I never would have looked at it as like I died in rebirth. And that's a good way to look at what COVID does, because it really does do that to you. It really does change you. It changes you to the point where it's like your senses are all messed up. There was like 3 weeks. I was like, the way that I was talking, I was like, do I really sound like this? Like I didn't know. Like I thought my voice changed. Like
I feel like mine did change. I'm like, fuck, I hope I can still sing.
I was like, it just changes you. But you're right. I think you nailed it right on the head. It's like when you catch it, there's a point of view that dies. And depending on how you look at it, it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. But it's either you're upset that the past, you keep visiting the past because it's like since COVID, our whole existence in humanity has changed. We have changed. We're never going to go back to what it was. This is going to be here forever, right? Like, it's just going to be a different variant. It's always going to be something, right? That I know for a fact. That's what's going to happen. Anybody who came from that before, they were going back in time and they're wishing to themselves, like, man, I wish things could be different. I wish they could be the way they were, but they're not going to be the way they were. Everything has a cycle, right? And that's the thing. It's like the more that you can adapt and get over it and change with the times, the better that you're going to be. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've learned, because I've been living in the past for a long time, and I've realized that I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. And we're not going to go into details here, but I did have the honor and privilege to do a healing for you like years ago. And that was super, it was super deep. And I don't know, I'm grateful that you're in my life. So we're coming up. Yeah. So we're coming up on the hour. You know, I don't know if you wanted to pull a card, like just for the energy of Tattva of this week, maybe.
All right,
you can show people how you do it. And then also, are you still offering readings, or are you kind of just chilling right now?
I'm kind of chilling right now.
All right. Well, do you want, if people want to connect with you, they can, what's your contact information? Give me your phone. Give me your phone number. I'm going to give my phone number. Just kidding. I'm not going to give them their phone number. That's inappropriate.
Inappropriate. No. Also, you can reach out to me.
How many band t-shirts do I have? What one was I?
Oh my God. You got kudos. I like that. I like that shit.
I was wearing Def Leppard before, and now I'm wearing Nirvana.
All right. So you can reach out to me at Alonzo ENT at Instagram. You can also reach out to me at handsofapollotarot at Gmail. So I used to have a channel called Hands of Apollo, and that was kind of like a big thing, but I kind of put that on hold for a little bit. So, but just reach out to me. If you're meant to find me, you'll find me. I'm out there, Julio Alonzo. So you'll find me.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you pull a card for the community?
For the community. All right, let's see what we got here. I don't know if you guys can be able to see it because of my camera, but
also because you're your trippy ass background. You
like that?
It's like coming in and out. Woo-wee.
That's how you know I'm classy, because it's a total shit show back here. All right.
You're disappearing. You're disappearing into the abyss.
There you go. All right, so let's see what we got here. Perfect. So we got the Queen of Wands, right? So someone's in their queen energy, controlling, ruling, taking care of business. Also, there's the black cat on there, which is someone who's very psychic, also identifies with all the fire signs. So Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, heavy Leo, heavy Aries. Aries sits on the throne first coming out, right? So it's also like leading by example. So this podcast also talks about that, leading by example. What you were saying earlier, you're putting everything on the line and you're using this little, people always say that black cats is like bad luck, but contraire, mon frere.
I love
it's
that.
Really the opposite.
I want to get
really
one.
Opposite.
I don't think I've had dreams about black cats, but I don't think Charles would like it. I'm not sure. Maybe.
He'll like
Charles is my dog.
Yeah, he will like it if you get him as a kitten.
Okay.
He'll like it. He'll like it. So this is good. So, and then there's so this is great. So there's so after that, you have the Page of Wands, which is going into a new direction, slowly, surely, like young energy. Like, I am a student to the science, or a student to the study. I am not a teacher, but I'm going to go out there like I am, in a way. I'm putting everything out on the table, and we're all students here to learn something, right? Mm-hmm. Not saying that I'm the expert in anything, but I am opening up and speaking and communicating, and I know that there's a new journey for me. We have to grab the wand, walking stick, and got to go through it, right? So this is the young part of it, and looking at it as almost like an apprentice type of energy. And then afterwards, you have the Ace of Pentacles. So there's abundance here. So things that you can hold on to. And it's very funny because like a lot of times we say the things that you hold on to, in this instance, they always talk about the physical. Like when you see a pentacle, it's things that you can hold, finances, home, cars, things like that. But because this is more of a spiritual read, there could be a little nugget of wisdom, a little nugget of knowledge, something that was shared that will resonate with you, that you will hold on to, that later down the line, it's going to help you heal, help you open up, and help you like grow. Ace of Pentacles.
Awesome.
Good.
Yay. Well, thank you so
Yay.
much for being my guest on the podcast post-COVID and with my new
Thank you for having me.
microphone.
Man,
Yeah,
you killing that new microphone.
I love this.
I love it.
This microphone. Thank you all so much for listening or viewing this, however you're consuming the information. If you want to connect with Julio, you can check him out on Facebook or Instagram. And I will catch you guys next week. Thanks so much, Julio.
Thank you. Take care, Lindsay.